Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. Teacher Ju's coming. Xiao Xiao shouted. When Cao Jinxian and Ju Sikhen heard this, they immediately became frightened. They both shivered, then quickly returned to their seats and quickly sat down. However, it was unknown whether or not Xiao Xiao had really gained the ability to see the future, as before she had the chance to make fun of them, Ju Yi actually walked into the room. Ju Sikhen and Cao Jinxian couldn't help but turn towards Xiao Xiao and give her a thumbs up. This, Xiao Xiao, who'd only intended to tease them, didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Ju Yi walked in wearing the mask she always wore, showing the same expression. She swept the room with her cold gaze. Forget about the students, even teacher Wang Yang felt a chill on his back. Wang Yang quickly walked up to Ju Yi and whispered, "Teacher Ju, Yuhao came today." Ju Yi glanced towards Yuhao, then whispered, "Teacher Wang, what do you think we should do?" She naturally would not admit to the fact she already knew what was going on. Wang Yang frowned and replied, "Quite a few people already know that Yuhao wasn't here yesterday." At the same time, Yuhao's group had a verbal clash with Dai Huabin's group this morning. At this point, it's impossible for us to cover this up. We'll just have to shoulder the responsibility for it. The two of us will simply have to work together. No matter what, we can't allow Yuhao to be expelled. Even though the academy's rules are strict, Yuhao did enjoy the treatment of a core disciple before this. If both of us insist that he stay, the academy will definitely have to consider our opinions. Ju Yi couldn't help but reveal a look of admiration after hearing him say this. Wang Yang didn't even know why Yuhao had been late, yet the first thing he'd done was try to think of a way to prevent Yuhao from being expelled. He'd done this without even asking any questions. Even Ju Yi felt somewhat ashamed when she compared herself to Wang Yang on this matter. Once she did so, she couldn't bear to hide the truth from him anymore. She whispered, "Teacher Ju, were you aware of Yuhao taking elective classes at the Soul Tool department last year?" Earlier, when they'd just been whispering to one another, the students hadn't been able to hear them. However, when Wang Lin raised his voice, he caught the attention of all the students. Wang Yang realized that he'd lost control of his voice for a moment and said, "Teacher Ju, let's talk outside." He quickly left the classroom once he'd finished speaking. Ju Yi let out a sigh. "Sorry, Teacher Wang. I did all of this for my husband. All I can do is not lie to you." When her thoughts reached this point, she turned and looked at the shocked students, then proceeded to follow Wang Yang out of the classroom. "Teacher Ju, what's going on? How come I didn't hear of this? I know that you're Fan Yu's wife, but don't forget that you're still a teacher for the Martial Soul Department. This isn't possible, it absolutely can't be possible. I won't allow it." Wang Yang was somewhat agitated. Ju Yi let out a sigh, then said, "Teacher Wang, please don't get so worked up. Please, listen to me first. In our eyes, Yuhao is an extremely good student. He can even be described with the words unlimited potential. However, do the higher-ups of the academy see him like this? Whether it's Dean Yang, Director Du, or even Old Xian, who you found to examine him, none of them think that Yuhao has enough future prospects to be worth investing in. As such, they refuse to give him the position of a core disciple. What sort of thoughts do you think he had? He was the team leader of the team that won the freshman exam, yet he wasn't even given the position of a core disciple in the Martial Soul Department. If you were the same age as him, and the same thing happened to you, would your heart be at peace?" When he heard her question, Wang Yang immediately became silent. Ju Yi's words may have been the truth, but Director Du also had his reasons. Ju Yi continued, "If that had been the only thing, it wouldn't have been too big of a deal. With the two of us taking care of him, I believe that, with Yuhao's talent and diligence, he definitely would have had the chance to showcase his abilities in the future. In a few years, he could have still become a core disciple, and maybe even an inner courtyard disciple. However, he decided to study soul tools. I've heard from my husband that his performance within the soul tool department can only be described as astonishing. His talent even managed to catch the attention of Dean Qian. In fact, Dean Qian has personally approved Yuhao becoming a core disciple of the Soul Tool department." Wang Yang was still a bit anxious and replied, That's impossible. He's only been in contact with the Seoul Tool department 7 to 8 months, right? Normally, only Year 4 students, or higher, can become core disciples of the Seoul Tool department. Besides a handful of students who were specially recruited by the Seoul Tool department, there's never been an exception to this. Yuhao's only been going there to study after school. How great could his achievements truly be? Juyi let sighed yet again and said, Wang Yang, you know my personality. It's true that I favor Fan Yu in my heart. He is, after all, my man. However, what you've said is correct. I'm still a teacher of the Martial Soul department. If our Martial Soul department had paid enough attention to Yuhao, I never would have agreed to Fan Yu's request for Yuhao to become a core disciple of the Soul Tool department. However, what has our Martial Soul department done to him? We broke that child's heart. Do you know how hard Yuhao has worked? Every day, in addition to his classes, he spent 2 hours studying at the Soul Tool department, rain or shine. Look, I won't lie to you. Before the school year ended last year, before Yuhao even had his second soul ring, he'd already managed to become a Class 2 soul engineer. You know how strict Fan Yu is, yet it was Fan Yu who personally rated him as a Class 2 soul engineer. He attained this in 8 months. Even at Yuhao's young age, he only needed 8 months to become a Class 2 soul engineer. He set a new record within the Soul Tool department. Do you really think that the Soul Tool department wouldn't be in a rush to accept him as a core disciple in this sort of situation? Once he heard this, Wang Yang suddenly became speechless. The Martial Soul department was the one that had refused to give Hu Yuhao a core disciple position. In addition to this, Hu Yuhao had displayed an amazing amount of talent in the Soul Tool department. As such, what reason did he have to stop him? He clearly remembered the powerful sadness and disappointment that had appeared in Hu Yuhao's eyes when he realized that he hadn't been announced as a core disciple. After thinking back to that moment, he didn't know how to refute Ju Yi's words. It was also at this moment that, on Sea God's Island, 2 crafty old men were discussing a similar topic. Qian Duo sat down on a large leather couch and said to Yang Xiaozhe, who was currently behind a large desk, Old Yang, "You can pay me back for the bet you lost now." Yang Xiaozhe placed a hand on the desk and leaned slightly forward. He revealed a shocked expression as he said, "I lost a bet against you." "What bet? How come I don't remember this?" "What? You forgot?" Qian Duo's eyes suddenly widened. "Old Yang, do you still have any face? You're too thick-skinned. Last year, during the freshman exam, we bet on which team would win in the end. Have you forgotten about how you lost to me? Do you really believe that I won't turn this place upside down to remind you?" Yang Xiaozhe looked towards Qian Duo, who looked like someone had stepped on his tail, and said with a smile, "Fine, fine. However, did you really need to personally come all the way here for such a small matter? I'm extremely busy, thus why should I remember such a trifling matter? Speak, which student of my Martial Soul department has caught your eye? I must remind you, our agreement was that you couldn't take any core disciples. Those students are precious to this dean, so don't even think about it." Qian Duo sat back down on the sofa angrily when he saw Yang Xiaozhe own up to the bet and said, "As long as you remember. You're such a miser. If I really tried to take a core disciple from you, wouldn't you fight me to the death? Don't worry, it's only an ordinary student." Yang Xiaozhe suddenly became more vigilant. The more indifferent Qian Duo acted, the stranger he felt. "Old Qian, don't use your nickname to describe me. I'm definitely not as stingy as you. Your Soul Tool department has so much money, yet you still haven't forgotten to exploit me. Tell me, who did you discover with your expert eyes?" Qian Duo looked helpless as he said, "What do you mean discover with your expert eyes? When you say it like this, I feel somewhat depressed. This is an internal matter of your Martial Soul department, but it seems that I'll have to use this bet that I finally won against you. It seems that I've lost big time this time." Qian Duo replied, "You know Ju Yi from your Martial Soul department. That girl who always make herself look like an old woman. She's Fan Yu's wife, and there's a student in her class that she likes who was late in registering for his classes. According to the academy rules, that student would normally be expelled. You know Du Weiluan's shitty personality, he treats the academy rules like they're his father, thus it's impossible to discuss this matter with him. Ju Yi, that girl, went home last night and complained about it. Fan Yu originally didn't intend to deal with this matter, but he couldn't handle the fact that his wife wouldn't let him sleep in his own bed. As such, he came to me. He wanted me to use the bet that I won against you to bring that kid over and make him a core disciple of our Soul Tool department. You know that Fan Yu is the candidate to be the next dean, and as such I can't simply ignore his request. In any case, since it's been a while since I won our bet, if I don't make you pay up now, you really might not be able to play in the future. That's why I came over. Yang Xiaozhe looked towards Qian Duo with an puzzled expression. A late student is enough for you and Fan Yu to make such a fuss. What's this student's name? Qian Duo sincerely replied, his name is Yuhao. Yang Xiaozhe's eyes flickered. I seem to remember that name. Qian Duo smiled cunningly. He's a brat from the champion team of last year's freshman assessment. His teammates are core disciples now, and he's the only one who's not because of his 10-year soul ring. When Fan Yu came looking for me just now, I felt that he was somewhat undeserving of becoming a core disciple. However, after I thought about it, this brat still did help me beat you in a bet. Beating you in a bet isn't easy for this daddy. If I'm able to see this kid in my Soul Tool department, I'll remember how I beat you. That'd feel really good. Thus, I reluctantly agreed. I just came over to say hi to you. I don't care about the specifics of this event. I'll let Fan Yu handle it. Whatever, I'm going back. I still have a lot of things to do. With that, he stood up and left, slapping his butt as he did so. Yang Xiaozhe used his eyes to follow Qian Duo as he left, inwardly feeling that something wasn't right. Picking up a microphone-type soul tool from his table, he pressed a button and poured his soul power into it. Weiluan. Yang Xiaozhe spoke in a low voice. Du Weiluan's voice rang out from the telephone. Dean Yang, it's me. Yang Xiaozhe said, help me check something. Is there a student called Yuhao who registered late? Somewhat astonished, Du Weiluan said, what a coincidence. There were a few students who just made a complaint to me, saying that this Yuhao entered the classroom in a grandiose manner even though he came in late. I was just about to take care of this matter. Yang Xiaozhe said, tell me what you know of this Yuhao. What's his talent like? Du Weiluan said, he has a bit of talent. Last year, he was one of the champions of the freshman assessment, along with Wang Dong and Xiao Xiao. His martial soul is called the Spirit Eyes, and his soul skill should be something similar to a spiritual attack. His abilities can be considered to be ordinary, but he has the signs of possessing a body soul. Because he was one of the champions of the freshman assessment, he was able to enjoy the temporary treatment of a core disciple last year. However, it's been withdrawn from him this year. His being late has violated the academy's rules, so he will be expelled. Yang Xiaozhe said, if memory serves me right, he only has a 10-year soul ring. Am I right? Du Weiluan said, right. He was able to enter the academy due to the Tang sect specially inviting him, and not because he was able to pass the entrance exam. Reportedly, his soul power was only at rank 13 when he entered the academy. Right now, it isn't clear as to whether he's reached rank 20. It's very possible that he hasn't reached it. And if that's the case, he'll be expelled anyway. As for his body soul, Wang Yang went over to Elder Xian, who personally inspected this student. In the end, Elder Xian was very disappointed. He said that this student had no talent, and that he wasn't worth cultivating. After that, this student was able to reveal a fusion skill with Wang Dong during the freshman assessment. This is his only strong point. Because of this, Wang Yang went over to Elder Xian again. After taking another look at him, Elder Xian verified that there was no chance he could awaken his body soul. After that, we didn't pay much attention to this student. Hearing Du Weiluan's words, Yang Xiaozhe immediately revealed a hint of a smile. Du Weiluan's abilities were still worthy of recognition. Yuhao was such an ordinary student, but he was able to immediately speak about his abilities in addition to a few of his experiences after entering the academy. He was definitely qualified to be the director of studies. Fine, then let's do it this way. You don't have to take care of this matter anymore. Earlier, Qian Duo came over to talk to me. He wants to use that time I lost to him to bring this student called Yuhao into his soul tool department. Supposedly, Juyi requested this from Fan Yu, who then brought it up with him. Since this student's so ordinary, let's just give him to the Soul Tool department. I can stop Chien Duo from bothering me about this. Chien Duo wants a student from you. This is truly somewhat strange. Why don't we wait until the advancement tests to verify his abilities? Du Weiluan asked cautiously. For the advancement test this time, you'll have to fight against a soul beast in the beast dueling area. At the same time, you'll also be able to choose the soul beast you'll be fighting against. Different soul beasts will have different points assigned to them, and the stronger the soul beast you challenge, the higher the chance you'll be able to obtain a high score in the test. This test will be graded by teachers from the Martial Soul Department's upper year groups. It'll have a maximum score of 100, and the people who are able to obtain more than 60 points will be able to pass the advancement test. Now, I have a few things I want to warn you guys about. Number 1, don't be too cautious. If the soul beast you choose is too weak, you might not be able to pass even if you're able to defeat it. Number 2, don't be overly impetuous. If the soul beast you choose is too strong, in the event the proctor can't make it in time to save you during a fight, then with that, the cold light flickered through Juyi's eyes, causing the students present to feel a shiver up their backs. They had all seen soul beasts in the past, but not everyone had faced a soul beast in single combat. They were still young, and practically all of them had had the assistance of their teachers when they had obtained their soul rings. Number 3, you have to keep in mind that losing the battle doesn't automatically eliminate you. If the soul beast you're fighting is strong enough, and your performance during the battle is worthy of praise, your final score might not necessarily be low. Furthermore, the standards required for control type and assault type soul masters are different. During a 1v1 test like this, assault type soul masters will have higher requirements. Your aim will be to defeat the soul beast you challenge. On the other hand, control type soul masters will aim to control the soul beast. How long you're able to keep fighting will determine how many marks you obtain. Yuhao was listening very seriously. He had to listen seriously. After all, they had made a bet against Dai Huabin. The stakes of this bet were for the losing party to kowtow and admit that they were wrong. Although this only involved a matter of face to other people, this had a completely different meaning to him. If he were able to make Dai Huabin kneel in front of him and kowtow, it was equivalent to him having completed a tiny part of his revenge. Therefore, he had to win this bet no matter what. Right at this moment, the sound of knocking on the door being suddenly rang out. Normally, disruptions wouldn't occur during class time unless the academy had certain special arrangements. Wang Yang and Zhu Yi were stunned. Wang Yang, who was standing by the door, turned to open it. A teacher stood outside the classroom. She was a very unfamiliar person to the students, and even Yuhao didn't know that it was this teacher who'd given him the secret law soul. Right. The teacher who'd come was exactly the teacher Mu Jin who'd lost a bet against Zhu Yi. Furthermore, there were 2 teachers in charge of the teaching department standing behind her. Zhu Yi's face sank. Teacher Mu, why aren't you teaching in your class too? What are you trying to do by coming to our class 1? It was unknown whether she was deliberately setting herself up against Zhu Yi, but after Zhu Yi became the teacher in charge of Year 1's class 1, Mu Jin became the teacher in charge of class 2. Mu Jin laughed indifferently. I'd heard that there was a student from your class who turned up late, but still came in for class. I specially came over to see who it was. I didn't come over to find you. It was these 2 teachers from the teaching department who were looking for you. The 2 teachers from the teaching department were stunned. A core disciple of the Soul Tool department. Teacher Lu asked disbelievingly. Mu Jin was already itching to interject. Zhu Yi, if you're going to make up excuses, at least make up realistic ones. Since when has our academy had a core disciple from the Soul Tool department, who's only been a Year 1 student? Who doesn't know that the Soul Tool department only takes in core disciples once they've completed their Year 3 advancement tests in the Martial Soul department? Who do you think you're fooling with such an excuse? The 2 teachers from the teaching department were briefly stunned. Teacher Lu then turned to Mu Jin and said, Teacher Mu, we'll take care of this matter. You should return to class 2 and look after your students. Zhu Yi's excuse was so inconceivable that they actually suspected it to be the truth. At the same time, having Mu Jin fan the flames of conflict would clearly be detrimental to the harmony between teachers. Mu Jin snorted resentfully. I hope the Academy will notify me of the results once everything has been settled. I'll tell you the results right now. Yuhao is my disciple, and is also a core disciple of the Soul Tool department. A tall figure appeared by the door to the classroom. It was Fan Yu, who was even accompanied by Director Du Weiluan, Director. The two teachers from the teaching department hurriedly greeted Du Weiluan. Du Weiluan entered the classroom and spoke with a solemn voice. With the approval of both Dean Yang Xiaozhe and Dean Qian Duo, Yuhao will no longer remain a temporary core disciple. Instead, he will now formally assume the role of a core disciple of the Soul Tool department. The reason for his tardiness was due to a task assigned to him by teacher Fan Yu. Hence, this matter concludes here. Yuhao will stay in Class 1 and continue to learn the various types of foundational knowledge in the Martial Soul department until Year 3, at which point he will transfer to the Soul Tool department. At this moment, even Du Weiluan was astonished. He hadn't known a thing about Yuhao's involvement in the Soul Tool department. He had only taken 8 months to become a Class 2 Soul engineer. Even the word genius was insufficient to describe this level of talent. After all, Yuhao was still only 12 years old. Even in the Sun Moon Empire, which highly valued soul engineers, a 12-year-old Class 2 Soul engineer was an incredibly rare existence. How was this possible? However, it was already too late for him to try to stop the Soul Tool department from taking Yuhao as a core disciple. They had just announced it to the world. Du Weiluan was certain that Fan Yu couldn't have made all this up. But the more he believed this story, the more depressed he felt. He could only console himself with the fact that Yuhao was only talented in the matter of soul tools. No wonder Dean Qian had personally gone to fetch Dean Yang. There was actually a foreshadowing like this. A mistake. They had made a large mistake. If they had known about this earlier, they would have told Dean Yang about it earlier. Even if he still agreed to Yuhao becoming a core disciple of the Soul Tool department, he might have at least been able to obtain a few more advantages from Dean Qian. Even if Shrek Academy's Martial Soul department had a status that far surpassed that of the Soul Tool department, their financial state was incredibly pathetic. Oftentimes, the Martial Soul department had to rely on the Soul Tool department in order to increase the funding they got. Juyi coldly swept her eyes towards Mu Jin. Director Du, Mu Jin is the teacher in charge of Class 2, but nonetheless, she has come over to my Class 1 to stir up trouble. Doesn't this seem inappropriate? What? A Class 2 Soul engineer? Yang Xiaozhe looked disbelievingly at Du Weiluan. Various thoughts flashed through his mind and he couldn't help but furrow his brows for a moment. After leaving Class 1, Du Weiluan had immediately rushed back to report to him, "Damn it, we were tricked. We were tricked by that old bastard Qian Duo." Yang Xiaozhe smacked his table violently, a look of regret on his face. Du Weiluan said, "Dean Yang, it isn't that serious. If that kid Yuhao's only talented in the field of soul tools, allowing him to become a core disciple of the Soul Tool department can be considered to be making full use of our resources." Yang Xiaozhe waved his hand. "No, it can't be that simple. You've forgotten something. If it's just as you said, why would the Soul Tool department be so impatient to take him? It would be fine for them to just announce that they're taking him as a core disciple by the time he reaches Year 4. A student who's outstanding in the field of soul tool creation definitely won't attract our attention. As for why he was late this time, Juyi and Fan Yu could have found another excuse to settle this matter. However, Qian Duo personally came over to deal with this matter with me, and he even used the bet that I lost to him last time. Haven't you realized what this means?" Du Weiluan was astonished as well. "You're saying that, other than the strong points the Soul Tool department values highly, he also has a few areas which we of the Martial Soul department value?" Yang Xiaozhe nodded. "That's definitely the case. Otherwise, Qian Duo wouldn't have come over to look for me straight away. It's no wonder I felt something was off." Du Weiluan smiled bitterly. "Dean, the matter's already done and dusted. The Soul Tool department has already announced that is one of their core disciples. There are many outstanding talents among their generation, so we should just pay a bit more attention in the future so as to not be taken advantage of by the Soul Tool department." Placing the badge of a Class 2 Soul engineer on his shirt, Yuhao couldn't help but feel a strong feeling of success in his heart. The workmanship of the blue, octagonal badge was extremely exquisite, and the 2 diamonds embedded on it were even more brilliant. stop showing it off shamelessly. Wang Dong couldn't help but tease him, you're grinning from ear to ear. Yuhao chuckled, supposedly, having this thing is considered to be the same as receiving the approval of the Seoul Engineering Association. You'll be able to get a decent job wherever you go with this. At the very least, I won't have to worry about food and clothing in the future. Wang Dong unhappily said, just look at how much you're bragging. Let's go back and cultivate now. Yuhao had an amazed look on his face. Has the sun risen from the west? When have you become this hard-working? Wang Dong snorted, I've always been very hard-working, all right. The majority of what Yuhao felt was the explosive increase in Wang Dong's soul power, but Wang Dong felt something different. He discovered that not only had Yuhao's soul power increased by a substantial amount, but the width of his passageways had doubled as well. The amount of Haodong power the two had created was relatively enormous, yet it wasn't inhibited at all when it circulated through Yuhao's passageways. It managed to complete an entire revolution without any difficulty at all. In fact, Yuhao's circulation speed even exceeded Wang Dong's. It was as if a heavenly treasure had been used on Yuhao's body, causing an astonishing transformation to occur to it. When the Haodong power had finished flowing through Yuhao's body, Wang Dong sensed a formidable burst of power from his body. Though the two felt astonished, they'd already started cultivating. As such, they didn't dare to be careless at all. They hurriedly guarded their minds and gradually entered a meditative state. They cultivated all the way until lunchtime before stopping. When they finally slowly withdrew their palms and opened their eyes, both of them had a somewhat strange gaze in their eyes as they looked at one another. They'd only cultivated for 2 hours, yet they both felt that their soul power had distinctly increased. With this sort of cultivation speed, they could potentially raise both of their soul powers by a single rank in less than a month. This cultivation speed was simply too astonishing. You're simply a freak. Wang Dong couldn't help but blurt out. Yuhao unhappily retorted, then what about you? Aren't you one as well? This was a combination of me being well prepared and my good fortune. Wang Dong smiled mischievously. It's no wonder that you were so confident when you made that bet with Dai Huabin. Don't worry, as long as your score in the advancement test is higher than Zhulu's or Kuiji's, our chances of winning will be extremely high. I'll definitely work hard in order to beat Dai Huabin's score. Yuhao nodded, then asked, are you saying that the proctor will be able to notice if we cheat? Their minds were practically connected at this point, as Wang Dong naturally understood what he was thinking. I'm afraid that it'll be extremely difficult. However, I can sense that your control has increased by a substantial amount, so it should be fine if you're careful. We have to make Dai Huabin and the rest kowtow before us. Let's see whether he'll dare to be so unbridled after that. When he and Wang Dong reached the canteen, they learned that Yuhao's lunch quality hadn't dropped, despite him being stripped of his privileges as a core disciple of the Martial Soul Department. A 30-or-so-year-old chef was already waiting for them outside. When he saw Yuhao, he immediately approached them. You're Yuhao. And you are. Yuhao could guarantee that this was his first time meeting this man. When Wang Dong returned from ordering his food, he took a look at his own food, then looked back at Yuhao's. A strange light appeared in his eyes once he did so. Yuhao, I'm jealous now. I want to go to the Soul Tool Department as well. When did the Soul Tool Department's food become that good? I heard that the food that their core disciples eat in their canteen is far inferior to what we of the Martial Soul Department get. However, it seems like the Martial Soul Department needs more nutritious food. Wang Dong's information wasn't wrong, but that only applied to ordinary core disciples of the Soul Tool Department. Was Yuhao ordinary? Not only was he Fan Yu's direct disciple, he was also the Soul Tool Department's first ever core disciple with twin martial souls. The Soul Tool Department had placed all of their hope on him, but even Yuhao didn't know this. Yuhao chuckled, then pushed some of his food towards Wang Dong. Here, we'll split it 50-50. Give me half of your food. We can taste many different things this way. He didn't even wait for Wang Dong to reply before he impolitely shoved a large amount of Wang Dong's food onto his plate and began to eat it with large mouthfuls. Wang Dong silently gazed at him when he saw this. However, in the end, he didn't refuse Yuhao's offer. Thus, he and Hui Yuhao ate the two different dishes available for the core disciples of the martial soul department and the soul tool department together. The Beast Dueling Area. As the largest specialized area within Shrek Academy, it was also the largest building within Shrek Academy. The space that the Beast Dueling Area occupied was as large as all of the buildings and dorms within the martial soul department, including Shrek Plaza, combined. Within the entire Dolua continent, academies that could use their power to actually capture and raise soul beasts were as few and far between as Phoenix Feathers and Chileen Horns. Of them, Shrek Academy was the one and only academy that could achieve such a scale as the Beast Dueling Area. Even the royal families of the various empires were unable to do something, create something like it. Capturing and raising soul beasts wasn't easy. One had to maintain the wild nature of a soul beast whilst keeping track of the different diets and habits different soul beasts had. At the same time, one also had to ensure their own safety whilst ordering them about. Investing in something this huge was something that ordinary soul master academies simply wouldn't dare to even dream of. The taxes obtained from Shrek City every year all went to Shrek Academy. And of this enormous sum of money, an entire third of it went into the Beast Dueling Area. It was obvious what sort of investment the Beast Dueling Area needed. Students who'd just entered the academy would generally feel that the school fees alone were expensive, but students who managed to enter the Beast Dueling Area wouldn't have this feeling. The amount of money they paid as school fees compared to the investments that Shrek Academy made was akin to comparing the glow of a firefly to the radiance of the moon. Other than the taxes received from Shrek City, another form of income that Shrek Academy received came from the Soul Tool Department. Every year, the Soul Tools created by the Soul Tool Department would be sold outside of the academy. However, these sales were limited to the Heavenly Soul Empire, the Dueling Empire, and the Star Luo Empire. They didn't include the Sun Moon Empire. This was also the reason that Yang Xiaozhe had said that Qian Duo was rich. The Beast Dueling Area also had an underground portion. Originally, right after it had been built, there were also more than 100 soul engineers helping the artisans and smiths. Thanks to various powerful soul tools, they were able to restrict the various soul beasts inside cages. However, powerful soul masters and soul engineers were required to guard the place year-round. According to the rumors, there were even some 10,000-year soul beasts imprisoned as well. However, there weren't any 100,000-year soul beasts captured. Although capturing a 100,000-year soul beast alive was extremely difficult, it wasn't impossible. However, a 100,000-year soul beast was equivalent to an unimaginable amount of wealth to any soul master. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that just 100,000-year soul beast could instantly cause a soul master to soar into the sky. 100,000-year soul ring and soul bone would provide 4 soul skills together. Just how terrifying was that? At the same, there was still the Beast Dueling Arena. It was specially provided to the students of Shrek Academy in order to allow them to conduct combat training, as well as to assess their abilities. Currently, the Year 1 students had just entered the Beast Dueling Arena in order to take their final test. When Hui Yuhao, Wang Dong, and Xiao Xiao walked into the Great Beast Dueling Arena together, they almost couldn't believe their eyes. Despite whatever background they had, the building in front of them was definitely the most magnificent construction they'd ever seen. Yuhao. The Sky Dream Iceworm's voice suddenly echoed inside of Hui Yuhao's mind. Even though Hui Yuhao had become used to Brother Sky Dream appearing and disappearing on a whim, he was still nearly frightened to death by his sudden appearance. "What's the matter, Brother Sky Dream?" The Sky Dream Iceworm said, "You want that boy to kowtow in front of you and admit that he was wrong, right? I'll teach you the easiest way to do so. This will also become one of your future fighting styles." All of the Year 1 students needed to retrieve their forms for their final test first, which would in turn tell them the order they'd need to follow to go on stage. Places for their scores and their rank were also on the form they received. Everyone lined up to receive their form. While they were doing so, Wang Dong looked around for Dai Huabin, until he noticed him standing a short ways away from them. He nudged Hui Yuhao with his elbow and said, "Look, Dai Huabin and the others are here." Hui Yuhao nodded, then walked over to where Dai Huabin was currently standing. Wang Dong was dumbfounded. What is Yuhao trying to pull? How could he be so impulsive? However, he and Xiao Xiao didn't waste any time trying to guess Hui Yuhao's motive. They both immediately followed behind him. Dai Huabin had also been paying attention to them, thus he naturally noticed when Yuhao suddenly approached them. He didn't reveal any weaknesses, as he simply gave Yuhao a cold look as he approached. The other students that were in line didn't know about the bet between them, but they did know that these two groups were the final contenders during the freshman test. At the same time, Dai Huabin and Zhu Lu's expulsion was already widespread. It was clear that the two groups held a grudge against one another. Thus, the six of them had become the focus of every single student. Yuhao stopped around 3 meters from Dai Huabin, and after pausing briefly, he said, "Dai Huabin, today is the day of our bet. I want to know, do you regret making the bet?" Dai Huabin instantly became speechless when he heard this, then thought, this Yuhao must have gone crazy. After thinking this, he coldly replied, "I, Dai Huabin, have never gone back on my word. Today, our two parties of 3 will participate in the several phases of the final test. The party that has the lowest cumulative score will kowtow and admit their fault to the other." Yuhao nodded and said, "Good, then I ask everyone present to act as a witness for today's bet. What do you think, Dai Huabin?" Dai Huabin subconsciously replied, "That's fine. However, if you regret decision, you and Wang Dong better kowtow and admit your mistakes right now. Xiao Xiao's a girl however, so I can make an exception for her." Yuhao sneered and said, "I'll wait for you here once the test is over." He turned around as soon as he'd finished speaking and left. Du Weiluan's voice suddenly echoed from the tall platform, "The test is starting. Year 1 Class 1 will send its student out first. Afterwards, Class 2 will send out a student from their class." Yuhao grasped his test form as he entered the beast dueling area with long strides. He immediately got an indescribable feeling, as if all the blood in his body had suddenly begun to seethe from excitement. Maybe it was because there had been many, many battles in this place. Coming here produced an intense fighting desire in every student of Shrek Academy. Only by fighting could one truly understand what they'd studied. This was also why the beast dueling arena existed, and was also why the students that had graduated from Shrek Academy would become outstanding soul masters that every great empire would fight over. Once Yuhao had handed his form over to the teacher in charge, the teacher placed it atop the ascending platform right below the judge's stand. Yuhao's assessment form almost immediately arrived in Director Du Weiluan's hands. Yuhao arrived in the middle of the stage. 2 teachers would act as referees here, in order to assure the complete safety of the students. The referee on the left asked him, "What do you cultivate in?" Yuhao respectfully replied, "The control system." The referee continued, "Choose the soul beast that you would like to take the test with. Remember, a control system soul master has to do their best to focus on the word control. You'll only have a single chance to assess your abilities. Don't waste it." Soul beasts are divided into 100-year intervals, ranging from a 100-year soul beast to a 1,000-year soul beast. The students from both Class 1 and Class 2 were focused on Yuhao, who would be fighting a soul beast alone. For most of them, it would be their first time fighting a soul beast on their own, thus they would be lying if they said they weren't nervous. Of course, they all hoped to gain some valuable experience from those who would be taking the test before them. This final test would decide whether or not they could keep studying at the academy. A ray of light flashed through Yuhao's eyes as he said in a low voice, "I choose a 100-year soul beast." "A 100-year soul beast? Are you sure?" The teacher in charge of assessing his skills thought he had misheard him. The first students to go on stage were usually the most outstanding of the bunch, but choosing a mere 100-year soul beast, this was a bit too strange. Even if he was a control-type soul master, he shouldn't have made a choice like this. Yuhao nodded and said, "Yes, I choose a 100-year soul beast." His voice was very loud. All the teachers and students, even the ones standing far away, could hear him. Juyi felt everything in front of her going black, and wondered in her heart. What is Yuhao trying to do? On the other hand, Mu Jin had the look of someone taking pleasure in another's misfortune. Dai Huabin, who was at first taken aback, immediately regained his senses, showing a disdaining look. Under Yuhao's insistence, the referee nodded and said, "Then we'll choose a 100-year soul beast to conduct your test. Are you ready?" "I'm ready," Yuhao replied without the tiniest bit of hesitation. At this moment, Yuhao's body had a sudden change. Under the astonished gazes of the surrounding people, 2 blood-red rings of light suddenly emerged from under his feet, both with 4 pale gold glittering lines on them. When they appeared, even Yuhao's eyes changed to a crimson red. It seemed as if a terrifying aura from ancient times had suddenly appeared. Everyone around him saw a blood-red light spreading from the center of Yuhao's body. At this moment, they found his small body to be as frightening as a demon from ancient times. The wind spirit wolf called out pitifully. That body that was dashing about madly suddenly stopped in midair. After that, it rolled on the ground like a gourd, lying weakly on the floor. Even excrement and urine could be seen here and there. At the same time, a large number of yells could be heard from that faraway cave inside the great beast dueling arena. What did a red soul ring represent? It represented 100,000-year soul beast. It was the soul ring of a first-class soul beast. Every 100,000-year soul ring was a rare existence. Forget the students, even the teachers present on the scene didn't have one. And at this moment, Yuhao had not only displayed a red soul ring, but 2 of them. No matter if it was the visual impact or the terrifying aura, under that oppressive power, every part of the great beast dueling arena was shrouded in a deadly silence. But those caged soul beasts inside the great beast dueling arena were not the only one to be affected. Even the students and the teachers were greatly affected. It was as if they were facing a terrifying, wild beast that had no equal. Under this fearful aura, they unconsciously released their martial souls, immediately assuming a defensive posture. That's right, Yuhao's opponent was a soul beast that had cultivated for merely 100 years. However, he hadn't moved from start to end, and had won this battle just by releasing his martial soul. How could this result be considered bad? This was simply the pinnacle of control. Now, Juyi was finally clear on why Yuhao had selected a 100-year soul beast instead of a stronger one. He wanted to have complete assurance. Had that soul beast been stronger, would he have been able to make it lose its fighting capacity, with just the aura of a 100,000-year soul ring? Even if he could, it wouldn't have had as great of a reaction as the 100-year soul beast before them. The visual and mental impact of Yuhao's display had really been too strong. As a result, not only were the 2 classes shocked, even all of the teachers were shocked. At this moment, everyone in the beast dueling arena was dead silent, looking stupidly at Yuhao, who was returning to his place with the other Class 1 students. Ju Sikhen swallowed a mouthful of saliva and whispered, "Old Hua, that isn't the reincarnation of some 100,000-year soul beast or something, right? That was just too terrifying. I almost wet myself." Even Du Weiluan hadn't expected things to become serious to this degree. Right now, they were unable to continue the final test. This seemingly unimportant affair would actually have an impact on the students' studies. "Fine, old gong. I'll give everyone a short explanation. Wait a moment." Du Weiluan turned around and arrived near the students of the 2 classes. After pausing for a moment, he said, "Due to certain circumstances, today's final test will be suspended. The teachers will now bring the students back to their classrooms to take lessons." Juyi quickly asked, "Chairman Du, what about Yuhao's test?" Du Weiluan frowned and said, "Let's say that he passed. Yuhao, come with me." After finishing his sentence, he turned and returned to Old Gong. However, Yuhao didn't immediately follow behind him. Instead, he went toward the front of Class 2, looked coldly toward Dai Huabin and said, "Remember to wait for me outside. If I'm not mistaken, according to our bet, the one with the highest score will be the winner. You've lost. I'll be waiting for you to kowtow and admit that you were wrong." This video will end here. Thank you for watching.